All right, we'll call the joint committee of public services and finance audit and budget committee together. First item on the agenda is
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
next item on the agenda. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda.
Adoption of the agenda, Romano.
Support Zinner.
Motion made by Romano, support by Zinner. Any conversation? Please vote.
Motion passes 9-0. 10-0, sorry.
Thank you very much. Next item is approval of the minutes. This is the Public Services Committee minutes from September 14th, as well as the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee minutes dated October 24th. If I can have a motion to approve both 4A and 4B. Motion made by Haw, support by Wallace. Any conversation? Please vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 is public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation. It's for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any item that's on today's agenda. Second opportunity for public participation is for those who wish to speak on any issue later in the program. Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Sir, did you want to speak?
I don't know if I can.
If it's on today's agenda.
I don't know. This is about water quality issues. Is that on the agenda today?
Sure, go ahead, sir.
Okay. I have here a copy, and I got every one of you a copy. This is Carl Marlinga's lawsuit where he went after Oakland County back in 1997. Carl Marlinga and I came before the Board of Commissioners, and Don, you were on it then, to ask if Macomb County could sue Oakland County to stop dumping its raw sewage, which it's been doing forever, down the Clinton River into Lake St. Clair, which ruins the lake and the river for us every year. And this board back then voted unanimously to fund a lawsuit and go after Oakland County. What stopped this lawsuit, I went to every hearing. I was Water Quality Board Chairman for this county for 14 years. I was the sludge buster. I drove the Cadillac limousine around with a toilet on the roof to bring attention to the pollution. I'm the St. Clair Channel Keeper, which goes from the St. Clair River all the way down to Detroit River. So I'm still that. But anyways, unless we separate the sewage and get Oakland County to do this, you can't fix it. While I was in office, my board forced $800 million worth of sewer fixes. And everybody said, oh my God, it's too expensive to fix. Well, it's amazing. When Clinton Township needed $43 million, when St. Clair Shores needed 110, and they knew that there was a problem, guess what happened? They got the money and got it fixed. If you pretend there isn't a problem, you don't get it fixed. Carl Marlinga did it in 97. I got copies for everybody here, what he brought to this board. You need to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Would anyone else like to speak during public participation? An item on this agenda. Seeing no other speakers, we're going to close public participation for this portion. Next item is 6A. This is a contract with R.W. Mercer underground storage tanks replacement. I'd like to have a motion to recommend to full board.
So move, Wallace.
Support Romano.
Moved by Wallace, support by Romano. And you're not Brian, but thank you very much. I forget your name. Welcome.
Filling in for Brian today. Thanks. Good afternoon, Commissioners. First item is to requesting the approval of the award of the bid to R.W. Mercer for the replacement of 4 underground storage tanks for the Department of Roads at our Washington and New Haven service centers at a cost of $1,126,270. This is included in the Department of Roads fiscal 2023 budget.
Thank you. Vice Chair Song.
Thank you, Chair. So this is funding that would be available in the 2023 budget, but we're still going through the budget cycle, so I'm just wondering, like, we haven't approved the budget, so could you just elaborate, like, where this $1 million will actually come from?
I believe it's to get the order placed for these because of the amount of lead time that we have on items such as these. Requesting the approval to, assuming that this will be approved in the budget forthcoming, to at least place the order for these to get them in line to get fabricated for installation later on.
Okay, and what if there is no, I guess, appropriation for this in the budget that we adopt?
Meaning that there would be no line item for them?
Yes.
From what I've been instructed from Brian, is that it has been budgeted. There is a line item and set within the county budget or the Department of Roads budget
Okay.
for it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good question, since it hasn't been appropriated yet. Chairman Brown.
Thank you. The Washington Service Center, are those the tanks that were put in the new facility? It's not new anymore, but it was new 20 years ago. How long are those the original tanks, or are those tanks that were there previously?
I believe these were original, and there's been issues with leakage, and that's the need for the replacement.
How did they find out that they were leaking?
I believe they were testing, and again, this is outside of my scope of area, but I believe there's requirements that they need to test the soils in and around the area when there are underground storage facilities of that nature, and they detected levels that were beyond what was acceptable at that time.
I don't know what the normal life expectancy of underground storage tank is, but we've been digging them up around this county for years, and some are very old. Some that people have long forgotten about. All right, I'll talk to you offline. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other speakers, we have a motion on the floor to recommend full board. Please vote.
Motion passes 10-1. Commissioner Song voting no.
Thank you very much. Next item is 6B. It's a contract with MDOT fiber optic cable installation in various locations. I'd like to have a motion to recommend full board.
So moved by Romano.
Moved by Romano, supported by Zinner. Please.
Thank you. Requesting approval of the contract with MDOT for the installation of fiber optic cables in various locations beginning October 27th of 2022 through the completion of this installation in the amount of $2,482,000 with CMAQ funding and the Department of Roads to cover project costs. Funding for the Department of Roads portion is available in the 2023 traffic construction budget.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. Is this grant money being utilized here?
No, this is what we receive in the form of what's known as CMAQ money, which stands for Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Funds that we receive from state of Michigan.
I'm glad you defined that, because when I read it, I went, what is that?
Right.
So it's local municipalities are searching for grant money to do this. I'm aware of that. If this is going through that organization, why would the local municipalities be out searching for monies?
I believe the new legislation, and this CMAQ is a formula funded or a formula program that, just like our federal aid that we receive each year, that goes for traffic and safety. With the new legislative act that was passed through the Biden administration, much of the transportation dollars involved in that come through the form of competitive grants.
So the local municipalities do have to go out and seek grant money, is that correct?
In some instances, they can apply directly for that. In others, depending on what the grant type is or what the specific criteria of the grant is, it would be either through MDOT or us as another agency or entity.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other speakers, we do have a motion to recommend full board. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you very much. Next item is 6C, cost share agreement with Sterling Heights. This is the traffic control device on 19 Mile Road west of Fortner. I'd like to have a motion to recommend to full board.
So move Romano. Support Hall.
Moved by Romano, support by Hall.
Thank you again. Requesting approval for the cost share agreement outlining the cost participation between the City of Sterling Heights and the Macomb County Department of Roads for the maintenance of their traffic control device, flashing beacon on 19 Mile and Fortner Drive at an estimated annual cost of $2,000. There is no cost to the Department of Roads, as the City of Sterling Heights will cover all these maintenance costs.
We do have a speaker, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Why does this come before us?
I believe it's because we are more apt and set up to maintain these signals and facilities of this nature as opposed to some of the smaller local agencies. So we set up an agreement with them where we will go out and do any maintenance that might be required and then just invoice them for the time charged.
Got it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Next item is 6D, purchase the Allied Building Service Company of Detroit, the HVAC maintenance. I'd like to have a motion to recommend full board.
So move Hall. Support Sabatini.
Motion's been made by Hall, support by Sabatini.
Thank you again. Requesting approval of the award of the bid for 3 years requirement of HVAC maintenance for all Department of Roads locations to Allied Building Service Company of Detroit at a cumulative cost of $64,010 over a 3-year period. The service is included in the Department of Roads fiscal 23 budget.
Seeing no speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
I believe I have one item at 7A as well.
7A?
Correct.
We already did it.
Resolutions?
7A, sorry. Okay, we're on 6E right now.
Yep. So,
Yeah, we're on 6E. So at this point, I'd like to have a motion to forward to Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee. This is the creation of the Lake and River Fund.
So moved by Romano.
Moved by Romano, supported by Zinner. And Commissioner Zinner, if you can speak on this.
Thank you, Commissioner. In Macomb County, we are having, and have had, as Doug March just explained, and we may get some more explanation later, a real problem with sewage coming from Oakland County. And it's been a real problem. We thought it was going to be solved by Carl Marlinga years ago, but it's not been solved. There's more I would say with the resolution that I'm going to be bringing up later in just a few minutes. But we'd like to have this fund to clean for our cleanliness for our river and our lakes for the county from the board. That's what we would like to see. If this could be passed, it'd be great. But right now, I think it's going to go to finance, and they'll deal with it there. We will all deal with it there.
All right, we do have a couple commissioners that'd like to speak on this. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I'm looking at this lawsuit, and I guess I'm going to have Ms. Miller address this. But I'm also looking at a picture that, excuse me, was sent to me from Commissioner Zinner regarding the looks like raw sewage in the canals and the lake itself. And you know, there's only one Lake St. Clair, and I think, as Ms. Miller is the steward of the lake, and I always considered it as such, her as such, this, from being just ridiculous, it is ridiculous that this kind of crap is coming in from Oakland County, and we're allowing it. And if any of this money can go towards that lawsuit to let Oakland County know enough is enough and clean up their act, I want the lake cleaner. And I think if we allocate this money, that's possibly, that might help. It's got to start somewhere, guys, and I think this is a good place to start with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. In the middle 90s, we had a Lake and River Fund established to clean up environmental messes at Lake St. Clair. We had weed harvesters that used to clean up the weeds. Similar things have occurred in the past in Lake due to pollution and other things that have happened. And so to support the idea of creating this fund, so we've got money available to clean up those messes when they occur, as well as the Clinton River, which needs to be cleaned up annually anyway. There's other needs for this money to be put to use for environmental cleanups of all types throughout the county, and having a pot of money for us to draw upon to take care of those needs when they come up is a responsible thing to do. We are the county. We look after the interests of the entire county, regardless of our districts. And Lake St. Clair and water quality is something that we've been a champion on in this county, in the nation. We've been national leaders, and having this money available to help clean up these messes is the appropriate thing. And I support sending it to the Finance Committee, to the Budget Committee, for consideration and inclusion in next year's budget. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Matuzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am totally in support of cleaning up rivers, water, etc. This is on our agenda with zero documentation. I've heard 4 people say we're going to do 4 different things with this money. Throwing $1 million up in the air, that's what this feels like to me. I'm unclear which department this is going to oversee this money. Is there a selection process for which projects are going to be picked up? How is this money going to be accounted for? A lot of questions I have about this. If I had $1 million, I'd be taking the dead wood out of the river. There's a lot of it. I'd throw some money at testing. We need more testing in the river. We clearly need to clean up the sewage. We probably do need to fund the lawsuit. I'm just really, it's like, here's $1 million. We'll figure out later what we're going to do with it. That, as someone who's got to be fiscally responsible here, that leaves me a little concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will concur with that. We have until November 21st when the budget meeting is. There better be some parameters. Otherwise, I'll be a no vote because I'm not writing a blank check for $1 million. So, Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. Commissioner Matuzak touched on one of my questions. Generally, when we do a budget amendment, it's a request from administration. It may not be a request from the Hackle administration. It might be from the Sheriff's Department administration, but there's generally an administrator involved. And the agenda item doesn't attach the money to any particular department, and we as a board are not allowed to administer the budget and the day-to-day affairs. It's not our role. So was the motion to forward it to the Finance Committee? Is that what the motion was? Okay. So, I can support the further looking into things, but I want a couple of things I would like to know before we make a decision. The first is, can we as a county, if the cleanup, if the muck that we're talking about is up against or on private property, are we allowed to use county funds to clean that up? With respect to the river, the debris, the same thing. I think we can clean up the river, but if the logs go on to private property, what is our role, what is our ability, and what department would administer that? I think the most likely one would be Public Works. It isn't a drain, so it doesn't really fall under Candace's purview, but it's the most likely department to me that would do that. I'd like to hear from Candace if that's something you would be interested in looking into.
Please, Commissioner Miller.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner, for that question, and I appreciate the concerns as well. I did see this, I mean, I'm here for my budget presentation, which is in a little bit, but I saw this on here, and let me commend Commissioner Zinner for taking the initiative for this, and I hope that we're able to see this to conclusion, and I know Commissioner Brown and I have talked about this for a long time, way before you had this job. I think we've been talking about what other kinds of things could Macomb County do, because unfortunately, in some ways, we're sort of the recipient of a lot of these things that are coming from a different county. On the other hand, fortunately, we all live and are blessed to live along Lake St. Clair here in the Clinton River. But we have challenges. We have a lot of challenges. When I get to my budget presentation, I'll be asking actually for $100,000 for river cleanup. We sort of started that. Now I see $1 million in here. So I would say this. If you do decide, Commissioner Sabatini, through your committee, to agree to this $1 million, I think it is I think it's very important that the County Board of Commissioners has a lot of transparency on how we're going to spend the money. And so we are certainly willing. We've talked a little bit about it just initially here, so I don't have any details really, but we certainly think we could handle it. We could handle it in a very good way, I think, and I think we could handle it in a year. And actually, we've already started thinking, geez, if we had that $1 million, we might be able to use it as a match to the Army Corps of Engineers for another $1 million, perhaps. Maybe we can even advantage it that way and accrue a thing positively that way. But there's so much cleanup that needs to be done, certainly along the Clinton River. And I'm going to show you some slides when you get to my budget presentation about snags and cleanups that are on the Clinton River in Clinton Township, in Sterling Heights, in downtown Mount Clemens, in Harrison Township. And of course, we're all here about the blue economy and how people are trying to kayak on the river and utilize the river. And people, they all call me and say, come and clean up all this debris. We can't even get our kayaks through here. But as you say, I don't have jurisdiction over the Clinton River, although believe me, if I had some cash, I'll worry about that later, okay? We're going to clean it up. And same thing with Lake St. Clair, even. I mean, we could figure it out. I mean, there's folks here that are living with Lingbaya. I know you heard about it at a previous commissioner meeting, and I know many of the commissioners have been out on site and looked at some of this stuff. It's gross. It's sickening. I really don't know what's causing it. I don't know that anybody does. We've asked the Army Corps of Engineers to study this issue. Jeff Bednar, who's my environmental engineer, is on the phone with them once a week. They're just coming out now with a white paper, which is whatever it is. It's a lot of psychobabble almost, but I mean, how do you fix a problem? But I think if we were able to match this, we might be able to get to some solutions. I mean, I have my personal opinion that the lake has gotten so clean with the zebra mussels that now I don't know if this is true, it's my personal opinion, that now all of this is growing. I mean, it's all vegetation, it's all organic. But if it's growing, it's just like your lawn. Why is that growing? Because there's things on it, right? It's being fed by combined sewer overflows. That's a huge contributing factor, I believe. By leaky septic tanks. I mean, there are a lot of leaky septic tanks along the Clinton River and other areas. And, phosphorus, et cetera, that's in our fertilizers on our lawns. All of these things are contributing, I think, to this. I've lived on that lake my entire life, and I've never seen this kind of a thing, that Lingbaya. And it is really, it's just choking. And, you see it in different areas along Harrison Township and St. Clair Shores. I mean, it's by Grosse Pointe Yacht Club. It's a thing that's happening along the lake here. And so if we could make a dent in it, I think that would be a very positive thing, and we could certainly work with I'll shut up whenever you want me to here, but
pretty soon.
Okay, we're happy to talk about the specifics of how we would spend the money. I mean, my initial thought would be, you got to go get a dredging contractor that's got a barge with a dredger on a barge, right? And that we, there's a half a dozen local guys here. We just sort of line them up and say, listen, what you want to bid on this? By unit price, et cetera, and we'd figure something out. But if we do this, I would just say this, and I'll come to your finance meeting and talk about it as well. But I think you might want to, because it is a different kind of a thing. You don't have an administrator, one of your county administrators. But as an elected official, if you want to have a liaison with one of the commissioners or whatever you want to do, whatever you feel comfortable with, I am certainly willing to try to work through the details with it. And I hope I know you might not have $1 million every year to spend on this. And if we have some cash right now, this is not a bad place to put it, in my opinion. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And if you can get with Chair Brown and Commissioner Sabatini before the 21st, if this does move on to the committee, that'd be appreciated. That way we have some detail.
Okay, thank you. So, and with regard to specifically what we're going to do, $1 million doesn't go as far as people think it does. People think it does. With respect to a lawsuit against Oakland County, as long as Oakland County is following the Michigan guidelines, we're going to throw away a couple $100,000 and lose that lawsuit all day long. As long as those are the guidelines that are set, and listen, Candace and I know for years we've the argument with Eggle over, well, we want to do these things to clean everything up, and we want others and there was a point they didn't even want us to clean something up because it might make others look bad, was the feeling that we had. And we're saying, well, we don't care about anybody else. We want to do something good. So I'd be really careful about throwing the money on a lawsuit that we're destined to lose as long as they're following the guidelines. So that's that. And then would need to know where it's going. And then my last question was, did anybody have any discussions with the county exec's office about this and the possibility of it and what department it could go to and what his feelings were on it? I only ask because we expect communication on our end, and I think that we are just as guilty about not having communication, and I'd like to see that change because we can't point the finger at others if we're not doing it ourselves. So did anybody have any discussion with the county exec's office?
Chair Brown or Commissioner Zinner?
I would refer to Chair Brown.
Were there any discussions, Chair Brown?
No discussion.
Okay.
This is for discussion only amongst the board. There's been no discussion. This came from Commissioner Zinner. We're going to discuss amongst the board, see if there's consensus to move it forward. We'll see where it goes.
Okay. All right.
And I agree, that needs to be done before the 21st.
Thank you.
Because it might not be $1 million either.
No, and there may be some legal issues that need to be tackled, and if there is, I'd like to have the Corp Council take a look at the issue as well. But if we can use it to clean up the river and do things like that, I'd like to do that. Also, with respect to the weeds, one of my concerns is you clean it out and it grows right back. That's a big concern about spending $1 million and then having that be the outcome. You know, a lot of the canals spray for the weeds when they go crazy, and they always come back. So anyway, I'm going to support moving it to finance, though. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I was just reading the agenda item again, creation of Lake and River Fund, $1 million. We've had, I quit counting it, 11 different issues arise out of one agenda item. And I appreciate Candace and everything that her team does, but she even raised concerns. So procedurally, what we need to do is get it into the Finance Committee and get these questions answered so we can either move forward or not. But debating it here is not going to get us anywhere or anything. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and exactly. We brought it up today as agenda item so we could have an open conversation about it. Correct. But yeah, there needs to be a lot done before the 21st and moving forward. Commissioner Sabatini.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to speak briefly about this. So I support this measure. Obviously, we certainly can bring it to my committee. Last year, and I know Commissioner Miller is going to talk about this in her presentation today in a few minutes because it's all in front of us. But last year, this board doubled the drain cleaning fund that is under the purview of the Public Works Commissioner. And I actually went there and met with Dan personally just to see what happened with the money. Obviously, there was a lawsuit, and they got that money later than they anticipated getting it. At least we anticipated giving it to them. But long story short, I really felt like that was a start. And what Commissioner Zinner's doing here today is it's a start. We got to start somewhere. We can't just keep ignoring it. I agree with Commissioner Matuzak and her thoughts in regards to just an open checkbook. I don't like that idea either. I do like Commissioner Miller's idea with matching because I'm all about that. and also Commissioner Kleinfeld in regards to Corporation Counsel. I mean, we have attorneys right here. So I think there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I think we can figure it out. And I'm certainly willing to work towards that solution. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak now instead of waiting. We don't know if we're going to get $1 million. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but like you say, this is a start. And the upcoming resolution will hopefully be a start. But the Lingbaya that Candace brought up is a big problem, but that's not the only problem. The Lingbaya problem is, if you look at the picture that's presented, there's swirls. It looks like just seaweed or something on top of the water, and that attaches itself to the nearest shoreline all along certain areas. Then you see the light green. That's fresh Lingbaya. It looks like a weed or a plant, but it's not. That's Lingbaya growing. Further behind looks like weeds. That's not. That's previous Lingbaya. That was this little swirl that you see in the water. And you look behind it, there's even higher what looks like weeds. That's not just weeds. That's Lingbaya. Now, for all that feet and yards, because this picture was enlarged, that's supposed to be the lake. That it has the matting we've talked about. There's areas of water there. X amount of weight can stand on that matting at certain times. But this is taking away our water. And being a nurse for so many years, as I've said before, my concern is health. Because we've gone through all this. But and with all the sewage that comes down from Oakland County, what is happening to all of that water, the 40% of Michigan that use that as their drinking water? They use it all the time. That's my concern, is what is happening for people's health. So this to me is a start, as you said, exactly, and is for our children, it's for everyone. And that's what it's for, is for a start. I don't know about the $1 million, but we'll see where we go from our start if we get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Song.
Thank you, Chair. I support the creation of a lake and river cleanup fund. I think it's really important, and I want to commend you, Commissioner Zinner, for bringing this up. I think that it should have been done a long time ago. With that said, I think the main concern for me is the fact that Oakland County will continue to dump into our lake, and this doesn't solve that problem. So I'd be really interested to put more resources and efforts into figuring out how we can prevent them from doing that. I understand the concern that Commissioner Matuszek has about us being an open check. And I'm just wondering, we all have a lot of passions that we stand for in each of our districts, and there is a lot of needs in many places, outside of our lake as well. I can share that the Macomb Food Program needs $1 million next year to fund their food pantries as grocery prices are rising, and that's not going down anytime soon. So I would just caution us to be careful about the power that we have in creating these funds, because then I feel like this would open up a can of worms, and we would, be obliged to fund other things too. So I just want to put that on everyone's radar. But that's not to say that I don't support the cleanup effort. Again, I believe that it should have been done a long time ago. So I appreciate that you are bringing this forward now, and that we are starting from somewhere in having this conversation. But I'm very concerned about what Oakland County is doing and how we as a board can prevent that in whatever capacity that we can, because this cleanup fund could go on forever, but they're going to continue to dump into our lakes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Song. We do have a motion and support to forward this to the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to resolutions. Item 7A. This is Resolution 2022-8979 in support of the Transportation Alternative Program, the TAP grant. If you'd like to, I'd like to have a motion to recommend full board. Moved by Sabatini, support by Wallace. Please.
Thank you again, Commissioners. This is to request approval of the resolution of support for the Macomb Township shared use path to their city center, including the receipt of a TAP grant funds for $240,870 with an estimated project cost of $390,871.
Seeing no speakers, and we do have a motion on the floor, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Item 7B, this is a resolution 2022-9048 urging Oakland County and the state of Michigan to reduce sewage discharges. I'd like to have a motion to recommend full board.
So moved by Romano.
Moved by Romano, support by Zinner. I know we have the full resolution here, but did you want to make any comments, Commissioner Zinner?
I believe we've had a lot of comments. I appreciate that, Chair. I would say this, this packet here that was given to us about the Marlinga lawsuit, that was in the past. I'm sure everybody realizes that. For anyone who doesn't realize, that did go through. And it was taken out, it was stopped by two people that were very powerful. So it isn't that it can't make it through. It can be done. And Doug Martz was part of that, and that's why he's here. I believe that's why he's here. You've all read the resolution, I'm sure. I just would like to continue to, as a friendly gesture, a friendly communication to our neighbors in Oakland County, let them know how we feel, and maybe we can have cooperation with the county and with Oakland County and the state. That's what I would hope. That's the first step. I think we should try to do that. And I hope you will agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other speakers, we do have a motion before us. Please vote. Yes, please, Commissioners. Miller.
Believe me, I can't let this one go by without something, because I live and breathe this issue, okay? Oakland County has been discharging their combined sewers on Macomb County for decades. Macomb County doesn't have clean hands. We also discharge combined sewer overflows. But we are trying to clean up our own problem here, and we are spending millions of dollars to do so. Oakland County, with the board's, if I could, I have just a couple of minutes of video that will show you where Oakland County discharges into Macomb County, okay, with the Red Run drain. And I am so delighted to see this resolution, because I will tell you, my counterpart in Oakland County, the guy will not even look at me anymore. He's so angry that I even raised this issue, okay? And he keeps saying, look, we are permitted by the state, which is true, okay? They are permitted by the state to do what they're doing, as we are. But just because the state is permitting you to dump your you-know-what on your neighbor's head is not what should be happening, okay? This is 2022, as you point out about our drinking water supply. It's one thing you're out there fishing or going to the beach or what have you. Those are important things. But it's our fresh water drinking supply. So and many times, Oakland County violates their permit. Last year in the heavy rains, they dumped 1 million gallons of raw sewage into the Red Run drain, which you're going to see here in a minute, which comes down happily down the Red Run drain into the Clinton River, Harrison Township, until it gets out into the lake. And it is certainly a contributing factor for Lingbaya and other kinds of contaminants that are there. If I could, just for a couple of minutes, I'm so delighted that the County Board of Commissioners is contemplating this resolution, because we need to speak with a united voice. Oakland County is our friends, they are our neighbors, but neighbors don't dump their stuff on their other neighbors' heads all the time, okay? So they could do something, at least start with something. Dan is going to run just a couple of minutes of video here just to give you an idea of what the Red Run drain is, where it comes. This is right at the county line in DeQuinder, okay? Go ahead, right, this is...
I've been raising this issue quite a bit. I've been told that I am putting politics over water quality, and that if I can show any scientific evidence that what has happened here is bad, and that what they're discharging is bad, that I should bring it to them, bring it to their attention. So I'm bringing this to their attention, because what is this? This is called a wipe, okay? These are personal wipes that people use, and then they flush them down their toilets. So they're sewer wipes. And they are all over these trees here. And the reason they're all over these trees are because when they discharge, the water level, you can see right now it's very low. But the water level in a heavy discharge rises way up to the top of the banks. So they only had one discharge so far this year. 750 million gallons.
We'll cut that one off.
They
We don't
stopped
need to
doing
see
this.
whole video. But that gives you an idea, okay? When the discharges come, and Jim Nash said this was stuff that was being blown into the drain from the road, okay? He said it was being blown into the drain from the road. Sewer wipes? I don't think so. The entire Red Run drain was covered with this stuff. Now, just 30 seconds more, just so you can see what the Red Run drain looks like. This is where it all comes from Oakland County, from GWK. And this is not even, we were trying to look for all our videos, trying to put them together this morning. We could show you some others that are even more startling, but this just gives you a concept of the drain and how it comes in. That when they discharge, the thing has the ability to create a 17-foot high head wall of water. Water, or whatever's in it, right? It's mostly storm water. It's 90%, 95% is probably storm water, but the other 5% is sewer. So that's why they call it the combined sewers. And as I say, they do violate their permit. Every year there's some violations. This year we've had a lot of drought, so we've been pretty good. But as I say, last year on one occasion there was at least 1 million gallons of raw sewage, raw sanitary sewage that came down the Clinton River. We were never notified. People are kayaking there, you know, and I've just said, could you at least let us know when you're dumping raw sewage into the Clinton River, so maybe we could tell a kayaker maybe they should be careful. Something, you know, we're trying to do better with our communication, but it's all hands on deck here. And so each one of you represent an area that is trying to do something. In the city of Warren, Commissioner Song, the city of Warren has bucked up, and they are spending over $60 million to fix your combined sewer and your sanitary sewer overflow, and we applaud you for that. In Clinton Township has bucked up. They have spent about $30 million to stop combined sewer overflows and sewer overflows from going into the Clinton rivers. Mount Clemens completely separated their system. And I'll tell you, if you drive around Mount Clemens, they're not a wealthy community, and they did it. So things can happen. We have a lot of projects, which I won't keep going on here about, but we are doing a number of things within our department to stop our combined sewer overflows as well. And I'm happy to talk about that at any time. But thanks for looking at the videos. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Miller, for bringing light to this issue and also highlighting the Red Run. I live right off of 14 Mile and Hoover, and overlooking the Red Run, and it literally is an open sewer. It smells horrible most days. We are doing, the best that we can as a city. Political issue, as they have, accused you of in this video. This is a human rights issue. And I believe that living in these neighborhoods is just very unfortunate. And, I will work with you and anyone to help us resolve this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We do have a motion and support to recommend full board. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to begin the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee with Chair Sabatini.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, we are at 9A. First budget today is for Public Works. This is budget pages C54 and C55. I need a motion to recommend to full receive and file, actually. This should be a receive and file. Made by Commissioner Farrington, supported by Commissioner Haw. We have Commissioner Miller here to talk about her budget. Good afternoon, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. Which ones are those, Norb? I don't even know which ones we did. Huh? Oh, okay, very good. All right, Brian? Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a twofer here. I'm going to give most of the budget, but the financials, the second slide, is going to be done by Brian, who puts our budget together so well. Anyway, thanks, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity. Joe Romano said I got to be really quick. But what you're seeing here on the first slide is the way that we define our mission at the Public Works Department. And we are also a critical component of economic prosperity because almost every site plan that happens in Macomb County ends up coming through our department as well. So we look at all of these things as our mission. And just to start the budget overview, I'm just going to have Brian go through the sort of the financials, and then I'll do the rest of the presentation. Brian?
Okay. Thank you, Candace. Public Works budget is $9.1 million. Important to note that 60% of that only is in the general fund, so 40% is in the wastewater districts, which have no impact on the general fund. Our existing personnel costs accounted for the entire increase in the budget. We did have, to note, some savings in some supplies and our internal services. In fact, we're the only general fund department with a reduction in an FTE, a slight reduction. We got contracted services for specialized equipment and manpower in lieu of filling a vacant equipment operator position. And we've got we're proposing 3 grant-funded summer interns, which we'll talk a little bit more about, for our illicit discharge elimination program. Those are grant-funded. As you will recall, last year we had the lowest budget increase of any county department. And on the revenue side, revenues increased 10.7%. That's because our permits and our inspection and plan review revenues are increasing due to building permit activity. We have additional grant funding as well, and we also have the cross charges into the wastewater districts as well. That goes into it.
Thanks, Brian. Our first slide, I thought I would talk about some of the various drain projects that we've done. Just so that you get an idea, a sense of some of the various work products that we're doing here. And Dan Acchiavetti, who you all know, does our drain maintenance as well. So most of these pictures were from him, I think. But as you can see from this particular slide, we really try to spread this out. We don't just focus on one community. We actually did drain projects in every municipality in Macomb County. And in some of them, we did a lot of different drain projects. And we're using the match funding for that. And so the next slide shows the before and after of several of the different drain projects that we have going on. I can't really see that thing from here, so I'm looking at what I've got here. Okay, so the before and after of the Gibson drain, as an example, in the city of Sterling Heights. And what we do with this drain match is we work very closely with the local municipalities. So we just don't go out and say, well, maybe we'll just clean this one. We usually will, and oftentimes they know more than we do, right? Because they're getting the calls in the local communities. So we work really closely with the city managers or township supervisor, township engineers, what have you, identifying which ones need to be done, and then we work closely with them. Then there was a before and after shot as well as one out in the Ray Lennox drain, Ray and Lennox Township. Okay, then we had one in the Pitts drain. We thought was some good photos as well. You can see in that one what it looked like before we went out there. You can't even see the drain, right? And then during, see the guys working out there, and then what it looks like afterward. And, I think it's important to note that these things are really, they become then community assets. They're beautiful. These drains can be really very attractive if they're in your neighborhood, if they're in your backyards, running through subdivisions, what have you. And we've obviously just got pictures of the open drains, but we are doing a lot of enclosed drains as well in the city of Sterling Heights, in Mount Clemens, in Clinton Township, where there's a number of enclosed drains also. City of Warren, we've been working very closely to take care of some of these enclosed drains. Then we have some other drain improvements going on as well. You get the quick video there, Dan, of this is up in Richmond. We just want to show you a quick 2-second video of, if it'll work, of what it looks like when they start. I mean, again, you see all the backup of the water dammed up there. They just start using the equipment. I mean, I could show you these all day long, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what happens here. It's pretty dramatic once it starts. I mean, it just starts going, water starts going in a kawoosh. And, you know, if you're in a neighborhood that has a lot of flooding because you don't have an outlet, you can really appreciate what is happening here. This is just one example, but I mean, we're doing this all over the place. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Dan. One other drain improvement I would bring to your attention, and I've put some pictures on there. This is a Rohrbeck drain, which Commissioner Haw is very, very familiar with. This is in the city of Roseville, and you may have seen some coverage on this. This is a big open drain that runs parallel with I-94 in the area of Little Mac 13 Mile Road. And if you're looking at the vertical, standing at the bottom, the ground looking up, you're looking at about a 20-foot high wall there. And what had happened is the drain had eroded it eroded right up to the fence line of I-94. And in very technical terms, bad. Okay, this was bad. And it had our total attention. The DPW from the city of Roseville worked real close with our guys. And also MDOT was a great partner here. So anyway, long story short, with the Rohrbeck drain, which could have been a real problem on I-94. Honestly, I'm not being an alarmist here. It could have had all kinds of bad consequences on I-94. Instead of that, we find them, we fix them. We got this thing fixed before that happened, and it's done. It's done. We had 3 different spots in the Rohrbeck drain where we had to change the configuration of the drain and armor the sides of it, et cetera. And then, of course, we always plant the mulch mat with different kinds of seeds, a lot of prairie grass, et cetera, which really has very deep roots. But we are also planting a lot of seeds that will help our pollinator friends, just because we're all about butterflies and bees, okay? So we're doing that all over the county as well. The next slide is for a new cleanout, the Clinton River cleanout project that I had wanted to talk about. I don't know if you're prepared to approve this in my budget today. I know you sent the $1 million to Commissioner Sabatini's Finance Committee, but as I say, I get all these calls to help come clean out the Clinton River, and we've got several different slides here that you can see what happens, right? Most of this is happening in the spring in the Clinton River, where you've got all these logs, whether it's just woody debris that happens or it floats down. I mean, it's just, you know, we're all at the bottom, we're all in the watershed, and it's all coming down the watershed, that's for sure. And we obviously don't want it to go out into Lake St. Clair, but it does every year. But anything that we could snag would be a help, I think. So we thought, well, we should just ask you for $100,000, and I don't know how much damage we could do with that amount of money, but we could do something. And particularly for a lot of the kayaking that is beginning to happen on the Clinton River as well. And let's see, what slide are you on now? Okay, Clinton River cleanout. So those are some slides of different areas that we see. Most of these were in Sterling Heights and Clinton Township, Harrison Township, of course. Mount Clemens gets some, et cetera. But everybody needs a little bit of it if you're in the Clinton River. The next thing, as Brian mentioned, and I wanted to mention this as well, this is grant funded, but we are looking, we want to hire some interns again this next summer to do our IDEP program. We had a group of interns this year. How many do we have, Jeff? 4 total. 4 total. You can't believe how sharp these young people are. I mean, they're unbelievable, right? And they're taking environmental science. We had one from Oakland, one from Northern. I don't remember where they were all from. But they did great. And we had them out checking for illicit discharges in our sanitary system. And they got so good at it, we actually trained them down at Chapaton how to test all the samples that they were getting, so because we didn't really have time to do that. But they learned how to do it, and they did this whole presentation to me at the end of it and everything. Anyway, they were great. I was very high on these kids. So we'd like to do that again next year. And we did find some spots, some really hot spots. There was one in Warren, I think, that was, you had 2,000 E. coli there? What was it, huh?
Yeah, definitely a hot spot. I mean, we tested multiple times.
Yeah.
Once we see that one
yeah.
keeps coming back.
Right.
So there's a problem.
So once we see a problem like that, whether it's coming from a residential home or whether it's coming from a commercial or what have you, then we work, in that case it was Warren, who's very good. If we tell Warren, we called it Brian over there, the DPW, that, listen, you got an issue here, we're finding this stuff. Everybody has been great with it. So anyway, that's one we'd like to continue to do. And then we also are asking you for some money for stormwater asset management. Anytime you talk about infrastructure with anybody, the first thing they will tell you is it's important to have an asset management program of all of your assets, right? Pretty fundamental. You need to understand what you actually have before you go forward. And we have done an asset management for all of our wastewater, okay, whether that's Clintondale, Chapaton, Martin, all of our sanitary sewers, et cetera. In the last 5 years, actually, we've been working on that. We have done, I think, an unbelievable job of putting an asset management plan in place with the help of the board with various budgets over the years. Now we need to move into the stormwater asset management, and that's what we're looking at doing here. And as you can see here, we're also, we've got the Corps of Engineers who we work very closely with for some grant funding as well. They've agreed to participate with us on our stormwater asset management if we get the funding in our budget for this. And it's important. I'll just give you one example. When I first got this job, people told me I had 900 drains. You know how many drains we actually have? 475. Not that that's not a lot. Nobody even knew how many drains there were out there, okay? So first understand what you have, I think. That's helpful. But anyway, all of our asset management material can be utilized by every local municipality, by consulting engineers, by everybody. It's a foundation for everything that we do. We think it's very, very important.
Mr. Chair, Candace, thank you for being here today. Brian, thank you for the presentation and for your whole team. I appreciate the reduction in staff. That's helpful. Couple questions for you. When you're clearing out the drains, Phragmites is an issue, especially up in my district, and I know a lot of that's more geared towards the local municipalities. When you're clearing out a drain, is that part of the disposal process? Do you just dig under them and ship them out? Is that the process?
I guess I could ask both Dan and Jeff that question, but I think I can tell you this. They laugh at me sometimes because we talk about Phragmites all the time, and I just throw my hands up and go, the frags have won the war, okay? They're everywhere. We can't seem to stop them. But we were instrumental in getting 6 rivers through SISMA, actually, a SISMA grant, to do something called cut and drowned. Okay, so you cut and drowned them, and we did several different pilot programs, and it actually worked. Of course, I was glad that I was wrong, because I said, how are you going to cut and drown? What are you trying to drown fish? This is never going to work, but it actually worked. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. And Dan is out, as he's digging out the ditches here, then the drains, I should say, with all the frags. He will often talk, for instance, like in Macomb Township, he'll go talk to a homeowners association, say, look, these frags, just like the Lingbaya, you know, once this stuff is cleaned up, it's not like they're never going to grow again. You have to do some maintenance, right? Chesterfield Township. He's been out talking to some of those homeowner associations or the community or what have you. So they're never really going away, but they are a huge problem because they grow like bamboo and they're all over. And it really restricts the water.
I've been on several properties too. Same thing, homeowner, just like Danny, we're walking the property, and it's so thick you can't even see through them. So
right.
I'm a big fan of the money for the river cleanup and all that stuff, but I think maybe some of it could go towards Phragmite mitigation, possibly, but that's the future conversation. My second question to you is the $72 million from the state. Where are we with that? Where is that at in the process? Have we received that yet, or is it still pending? Where are we?
Seems to me that they have very deep pockets and short arms, okay? So far, I would say that. How about that, Harold?
Thank you, Candace.
No, we are hopeful that we are going to be able to start receiving some of the funds that we've asked for from the state, $72 million. within the next month, I would say. But honestly, that's not carved in stone. I mean, I have called the governor's office, I've called everybody I know to get after Eggle about that, but we've put in applications for the MID for projects, the sewer interceptor projects to begin with. I think we're asking for 35 million of that 72 so far for both segment 6, which is down at 15 and right by the ITC corridor. That's segment 5, and segment 6 is at 15 in Garfield. So those are 2 big projects that we are doing right now so that we don't have any more sinkholes. And we're trying to get money, because if we get that, we are going to get the money eventually. But when we get that money, then we don't have to pass on the increases to our ratepayers, right? So they're really the big beneficiaries of that. So we have those 2 things, and then we've got a whole bunch of other projects we're trying to do with it. And we're hopeful as well that we're going to be getting ARPA money from Macomb County also, which is all going to be to the good.
Thank you, Candace. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. First, let me say on behalf of the city of Roseville, I can't thank you and your team enough for that I-94 situation. You indicated it could have been disastrous. I'm assured it was going to be disastrous. So it showed once again how government can all work together. You saw it, you identified it, we got it approved and fixed, and it's an absolutely beautiful site right now. It's incredible
nice.
what it turned into.
They did great.
I do have one question for Brian, our representative at the GLWA. That was a huge issue last year. I've watched him at the committee hearings. Tremendous representative for us. But it seems to have died down. I noticed there was an article about a couple weeks ago where, was it Hamtramck said, we're not going to comply, or we're not going to do something. So just an update of where we are with that issue.
You're talking about Highland Park?
Yes.
Yeah. So, a lot of things, right? We won a $24 million judgment from Highland Park. Surprisingly, they're appealing. They had 42 days to do a reconsideration of the request. Court of Appeals denied it. So now they have another 42 days to appeal to the Supreme Court, which they're doing. They have until mid-November to do that. Who knows how long it'll take the Supreme Court to decide. So another stall, right? The 2020 case, where we're suing them for the money that they haven't paid since 2014, the judge hasn't heard the case, has nibbled around the edges and told them they have to start resuming the payment of 65% of the payments to GLWA. They made one payment, and then they appealed that decision, said they didn't have the money. So that, right now, they want to go to court on that. We found their bank records that shows they do have the money. So they could comply with the judge's order. So again, stalling. In the meantime, not paying. In the meantime, we're all going to be paying more when we get the new rates out in January. Now we are in mediation with the state and Highland Park. It's going slow. Can't really talk too much about it. There's been no progress yet. Hopefully some progress, but it really is going to take the state to come to the table. Not only help Highland Park out, but also encourage them to come to a long-term understanding. So that's where we stand today. No additional payments. Their bill keeps getting higher, and they're not paying. And
That's an issue. I know you don't lose focus on it, but I think all of Macomb County has a focus on that issue as well, and continuous updates would benefit us all. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, believe we're going to be probably talking about it in January when the rates come out again.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. It's good to hear the IDEP program, that you're adding more staff to the IDEP program. In the middle 90s, when Lake St. Clair was blowing up and we didn't know really what was going on, you know, we started the IDEP program. But before that, we did monitoring. We set up monitoring to try to find out. We were drawing it from every resource we could: Clinton River Watershed Council volunteers, some county staff, try to physically go out and see, identify where the happenings were. We still have a monitoring program in place now across the county, don't we? How many monitoring systems, how many monitoring points are there roughly?
56.
Why don't you come up
56.
here, Jeff, and just talk a little bit about the IDEP? I mean, he's a,
Yeah, those.
it's his thing he's doing.
I think it's
He's doing
good
a
to
great
educate
job.
the board that may not have the background to understand the breadth and how long we've been doing this, to develop a data set. Like you said earlier, Commissioner Miller, about you can't solve a problem if you don't know what the scope is. And we didn't know what the scope of the problem was, so we set up these monitoring systems across the county. And
Sure. So Commissioner Brown, that program has been instrumental in identifying where the hottest spots are. We've actually corrected quite a few of those over, what has it been, almost 2 decades that's been going. Where we're at right now is wanting to switch over from just testing for E. coli, which is an indicator of that there's waste from some sort of animal, right? And I think we've all heard about that there's other technology out there where you can identify, is that animal, like is it a dog, is it a cow, is it a gull, is it a goose, is it a human, right? We are working with the Army Corps of Engineers to be able to take the work effort that we're doing in conjunction with the health department and expand that program to be able to do that advanced testing so that we can really focus it on the areas of human contamination. So that's what we hope to do this coming summer, so that we can really zero in and find those areas where we have septics that are an issue, or where we've got those either still cross connections or just leaky pipes is what I think we're going to find.
the IDEP program, part of it, they go into the sewers and identify illicit connections. And one time it was described, we're starting out at the lake along, like here, St. Clair shores, from the lake shores, and work our way inland. What percentage of the county's been done to inspect those pipes? Because a lot of pipes out there, right?
So, and you've got to appreciate, if you inspected a pipe 20 years ago, it's overdue for another inspection. So we completed with grant funding through the state quite a few pipe inspections. I believe we came to the board and updated you probably 2 years ago on those types of inspections. We're looking to do another one of those in St. Clair Shores. Actually, there's not to get too verbose, but there's a storm drain in St. Clair Shores we want to inspect, and then there's also some combined storm and sanitary on the south part of St. Clair Shores, where we have storm drains that go into our sanitary system. So we want to inspect those. Those haven't been done for years and years. We've done the inspections up in Sterling Heights as well. So that's part of our asset management program, which Commissioner Miller talked to you just before this about. We're going to expand that program through the asset management program.
And in some of those, you find illicit connections that were just hooked up wrong, pipes that were just maybe from a development, a housing complex, something like that. It got put into a storm sewer rather than into a sanitary, right?
I believe there was one on 26 Mile with a new development just a few years ago that was corrected rapidly.
Yeah, very good. And we're also going to, and it's in our budget, to give some art money to the commissioner to $40 million is what's proposed to help identify or help correct do some maintenance so that prevents some of those environmental disasters from happening.
Yes.
Which will be a step in the right direction again. We can't get it all at once, but incremental progress is what we've been trying to do for the last 20 years around this county, trying to make improvements for water quality, which we all live, regardless of where you live in this county. It affects you in some way, either through higher water rates and sewer rates, because you have to correct problems, or through your recreation and other things. It all goes back to the point from the earlier discussion we had in this last committee earlier, about asking our neighbors to help out and do something to help mitigate the problem. Think of it as if you had a bucket with two pipes coming in. One bucket, one pipe's, slowly not putting as much into the bucket, and the other one's open wide up and keeps dumping pollutants into the water. We need both. We need to help on both sides, and our Canadian friends too, but that's another issue. But so I supported the resolution asking our friends in Oakland County to help out, because we've been trying to do what we can with what resources we've had available to help. And we also, in that resolution, also asked the state of Michigan to step up and help out. I mean, they're the partner. They're the ones that give these communities the permits, the discharge. And I understand you'd better to discharge it in the river than put it in someone's basement. So we all understand that. But you can start doing some incremental progress, as we've done in this county for 20 years. And I just would hope that maybe they'd see it our way instead of, not doing as much as, because it's necessary and it's needed. It's just being a good neighbor. I mean, think of it, if you will, if we had a lineup of septic trucks lined up, dump discharge in Oakland County. They wouldn't like that, but people see it, and they would be unacceptable. But the way it's been done here for generations, it goes into the river, and no one sees it at night or whenever it happens, and no one really sees it. It's not visible. Just like the infrastructure in across our region is crumbling. That's why we're working with the 3 county leaders to talk about infrastructure, and they need to bring federal and state and local resources to bear to try to upgrade and correct it. It's just necessary for all of us. It's the responsible thing to do. We don't want to start saying, don't look to the past. We just got to look what we can do in the future going forward and say, okay, well, we recognize we had problems in the past. Let's see what we can do to help. And this board and our county executive and you and everybody in Macomb County will be right there lobbying to get the money from the feds and the state to help correct these problems so we can have a cleaner, healthier environment to make Macomb County our home. It's where we live. We don't want to live in a sewer. We don't want to swim in a lake. We all out there at some point. So I'm glad to see the investment in the IDEP program and the things you're trying to do. It's important. We got to continue that. There was a time, because the economy was so bad, we had to cut back on that, and we got away from it. But we don't have to get back. We don't have to get away from it anymore. We've got the money to do it. We definitely have the willpower to do it. So let's work together, cooperatively, regionally, to get this thing done and bring the attention we need to our area from the federal government and the state, and we'll chip in locally to do these things and make these corrective actions. So I appreciate the work you're doing, and I'm glad to hear that the progress is being made, and those things that we started long ago haven't died, and they're getting started again in earnest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just to add on to what Jeff was talking about, the IDEP, we actually, the first year that I was here, we started doing, this was through a SAW grant, where we were checking these huge outfalls, the big drains that run, in this case I'm going to tell you about, went from East Point, went down Stevens from East Point down to St. Clair Shores, and it discharged at Colony Marine in the nautical mile there. And we found an entire apartment complex for 33 years that had an illicit, whatever you want to call it, sanitary sewer connection. So their sanitary sewer from an entire apartment complex for over 30 years was discharging into Colony Marine right there in Lake St. Clair. And we found it. We identified it. I called it, at that time, Pixley was the mayor of East Point, and it was fixed the next day. Because I told the mayor, so I said, if I find this stuff, you got to go fix it. I don't have enough cash. And they did. So, and we found some others, but that's just an example of some of the things that we're finding. There's so many different contributing factors to contamination in Lake St. Clair, the Clinton River. It's sort of like eating an elephant, one bite at a time,
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
So I know that the 100,000 is in the appropriations page. I asked Phil because I was having a hard time finding that. The asset management system, what line item is that in the budget?
Capital fund.
So are you referring to the capital fund that wouldn't be in our budget?
Correct. It's actually in your budget package, Commissioner, at the back.
Okay.
It is listed with the 40 million that Commissioner Brown was referring to.
Okay.
Along with some other items.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, I've got a few questions. First of all, I want to say thank you to Commissioner Miller and to her team. Last year, during the budget process, I reached out and said, I have an idea with these drain improvements because I saw the props. I allowed props last year at the budget presentations, everyone, for a reason, and I'm glad that she brought them back again because what you're seeing is what we all supported, and the turnaround to the boards and also the sheet of paper that's in front of you. But basically, everybody wins with these drain improvements. It's not isolated to one community. It's across Macomb County, and you can see all of our municipalities are listed there. And I met with Dan a few weeks ago at the office just to see, what happened with those funds last year and what we accomplished. And obviously, it's a focus of today's presentation. So thank you for honoring our commitment to you in that turnaround with these drains, because water quality is so important, and we're taking that bite out of that elephant, right? One bite at a time, as Commissioner Miller says. Couple other things. I think one of the buzzwords we're hearing during our budget process is interns. I'm glad that you're utilizing them. I'm glad that you're having success with them. We've heard other departments that are doing the same. And also, in regards to your capital projects in the stormwater, I didn't even know this until Dan told me this, that the stormwater assets are really the responsibility of the property owners. So when something fails on your property related to stormwater, it's your responsibility, not the counties, not the locals. And I wasn't aware of that, and I'm glad that they're moving towards trying to figure out where all these assets are and figuring out how they can best communicate what those necessities are to either property owners, locals, whomever, so that they're made aware of that. So I commend you on that. The other thing, too, Brian, I love when you bring a budget and the FTEs go down. We can't really argue too much about your budget when it's going the opposite way.
I tell him sometimes he's cheap, and he always corrects me and says, no, I am very frugal.
That's okay. We like that. And I love what you've done in regards to the equipment operator, removing that and contracting that out. I think that's a win-win.
It was Dan's idea.
And the return on investment on that is huge for us. One of the other things, too, I think that's important, and we briefly talked about this last year, was, all of the drains, as far as when, in subdivisions and the caps that are there, that water all goes to the river, to the lake. And I think that might be something that we can maybe allocate some money so that we can let residents and let people know where that water goes. And I know you've got stamped here, no dumping, drains to river. And maybe that's a campaign that we can help you with to make people aware that we don't want that in the water. And if they understand that, it's all about awareness and making people understand what happens with these, where the water goes. Everything else, in your budget, the only other question I had is really for finance, and Steve's not here, is just in regards to the audited financials, your budget actually went the other way, and that's more of a question for finance, so not a question for you or your team. But beyond that, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing everything that you're doing and continue to keep doing it.
I just want to respond.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Steve actually called me. It looks like we were over budget last year. We actually weren't. There were two things that Steve put in our budget. The $100,000 for Chapatin, the county's apportionment, should have been in appropriations department, got charged to our budget. And the Red Run assessment got charged to our budget. So it shouldn't have been there. Made us look like we were over, but we're actually under.
Yep, perfect.
Now,
Good
if you
answer.
believe that it wasn't initiated by, I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Hey, let me just say, I appreciate you using the term team, because as you can see here, I'm all about team. I got a great team, great management team. The county is blessed to have great employees, and the Public Works has got them all over the place. And many of you on the drain boards have seen some of our other engineers and talked to them. And we have a really good management team. We feel like that our department is really rolling. We're strong in a lot of different areas. Not perfect. We got largest room was always room for improvement. We recognize that, but we have a great team, good people that are there, and we try to create an environment of creativity and not feeling like if they try something new and it doesn't work out that the boss is going to hit them over the head. You really want them to know that you got their back. Let's think a little bit, try to be creative in some of these things and challenges in that. So we really try to foster a great team spirit as well. But so I appreciate using that term because we think about it all the time.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Seeing no other speakers, please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you all.
Commissioner, given enough time?
All right. I threatened that something was going to happen to your sanitary sewer, but you're going to be all right, Romano.
Okay, next item is Planning and Economic Development. Need a motion to receive and file.
So moved, Song.
Moved by Song, supported by Wallace. And just bear with our team as they switch over here. And then Vicki, you will have the floor as soon as you're ready to go.
Fantastic. You guys did this to me last year. You had me go right after Candace, and she's a phenomenal speaker, phenomenal program.
Where's all your props?
Where's my props? Well, I got a presentation for you guys today. So, there's a resounding theme with Candace's presentation, and I'll kind of carry that over into our budget here, the request for Macomb County Planning and Economic Development. In 2020, we had a census, and, remarkably, Macomb County fared very, very well. When we look at our economic impact and our goal and mission within planning and economic development, it really is looking at how do we create an environment where we are retaining, growing, and attracting businesses as well as residents. We've got the slogan in Macomb County that live, work, play, and thrive. And a lot of that actually did come into fruition if we look at just the last 10 years. The population in the county, when we talk about growth, you're looking at 11 people choosing Macomb County every single day for the past 10 years. Part of that is understanding, why are people coming here? Our department does focus on the business attraction side, creating those great paying jobs. But you look at economic prosperity and how you define that, whether that is creating safe neighborhoods, whether it is having great school districts, ultimately the county services that are being provided, not just from my department, but from all of us here who touch Macomb County. So wanted to recognize what's happening in the county, and it's actually very positive. We want to continue to see that positive forward motion. So when we look at kind of some of the challenges that we also have in play here, looking at those census numbers, from our perspective, we are a labor force in transition. Even previous to COVID, we were talking about the silver tsunami. That is your senior population, 55 and up, that may be perhaps looking or starting to look at what retirement looks like. From our perspective, that does pose a major challenge because we are attracting quite a few large projects, major jobs, as well as job workforce development, but making sure that we actually have that pipeline to fulfill those jobs is critically important. You'll hear in our budget for 2023 and beyond, you're really looking beyond to 2030, how do we really make Macomb County a very stable place to work, recession-proof for our workforce. So regardless of the industry, we've got a plan in place to make sure that Macomb County stands strong. We also have specific targeted industries that we focus on within our economic development group. We actually modified this slightly. We were at 9, and we have now since reduced that to 5, but combined some pretty significant targeted industries, automotive and mobility. We're seeing that changeover from just traditional manufacturing into more of that EV and mobility space, where these car companies are basically coming to us saying, we are technology companies, not just a manufacturer. And with that requires a skilled workforce to meet those types of jobs. Defense and aerospace has always been important. It is a county gem that we've got here. We do have a plan in place to continue to grow our aerospace and defense. Distribution and logistics, we're actually seeing quite a few projects come into Macomb County in terms of major warehousing, logistics. How do you get your product to the consumer? And sometimes your consumer is your household. Robotics and automation has always been really strong for us, as well as our agribusiness. When we look at our makeup of the county, we still have, over 400 active farms in the county. We want to make sure that we're providing the resources for those farms, but it also becomes a issue of national security of where does your food sources come from. And so we want to be very protective of what we've got here in the county. Over on the right side of this, I want to talk a little bit about some of the specific investments that we've seen come to Macomb County. I don't know if you guys read the Cranes or Macomb Daily today, but we can add an additional $96 million to this $385 million with the Magna investment coming here, 159 new jobs. These are important metrics for us in economic development. When we look at county growth, we look at population. When we look at planning and economic development, we look at job creation, job retention, and through the resources of our team, being able to create over 1,200 jobs, retaining 843. That's pretty significant on the cusp of the pandemic that we all have walked through. We're also wanting to put together an economic development strategic plan, really looking at a 2025 to 2030 goal, a 5-year goal, looking that far out. The last time the county has supported a economic development strategic plan was actually during the recession when Steve Casson was the director, and that was actually at a time of need, when we had to truly look at diversification, not just looking at our assets in automotive, but where else can our businesses focus on so that they can continue to grow and retain their business. We're also looking at a site selection strategy. We have a lot of partners, one including our Detroit Regional Partnership, looking at land use, land availability in the county. We're sitting at a 2.1% vacancy rate. That is concerning. We actually are turning down a lot of potential prospects and projects because we just do not have those industrial buildings ready to go. But we want to make sure that our site selection strategy looks at sites that are usable, making sure they're shovel ready, working with our utility partners in that regard. And then, I do want to reflect on, where this economic development strategy really comes into high impact to what we've got going on here in Macomb County. There's an initiative at the state, the 60 by 30, where they're looking at educational attainment as an indicator of success. Here in Macomb County, I think we're so unique in that we've got a broad range of individuals that are perhaps not necessarily college degree, but certified or credentialed, that really bring into the county economic prosperity in the form of income and salaries. When you look at these numbers, what is pretty significant with this growth is looking at that $100,000 salary and up. These are individuals that we want to make sure that they stay in Macomb County, that we're attracting this type of talent to the county. Ultimately, these are your individuals that will be purchasing your homes in your neighborhoods and be spending money within your commercial districts. But it's pretty significant when we add up that 100 plus income bracket with over 55% projected growth in these salaries. And this really has to do a lot with our strategy internally, making sure that the projects and the jobs that we pursue are looking at those good paying jobs for all. And I want to go back to this real quick because there are some workforce collaborative grants that we're looking at, working with our partners at Michigan Works, Macomb Community College. This doesn't happen on a funnel. It's not just Macomb County. It requires all of us to come together on that. And then another initiative that we've got going on here within our department is our talent liaison. This individual really is working with our K through 12, ensuring that we've got a connectivity to our school districts, talking to them about these jobs, these careers of the future, really getting students engaged. One of my beginning slides talked about that silver tsunami, that retirement group. We've got to make sure that we keep every single student here in the county, that those jobs are here. And so part of this effort is called Fueling the Talent Pipeline, making sure that we are in direct conversations with our school districts, that they're looking at their curriculum so that it aligns with the jobs of the future. And then if we can recap on some of the planning grants that our department has touched. Over $3 million in grants have been received over the 21-22 period, and these are across the board. You'll see one of the larger grant pools is within our Parks and Natural Resources work group. Earlier this year, Consumers Energy gifted Macomb County $250,000 for our tree plantings. There's definitely a heavy lift there, but when we talk about quality of life and why people choose to come to Macomb County, that is definitely an area that we want to make sure that we provide some love to. Part of this is making sure we've got the staff on hand to assist with that as well. That Parks and Natural Resources work group is 2 people strong. Our request for the 23 budget is to bring on a part-time planner to assist with the administration of those grants. We also have some other studies that are currently underway or currently in the bucket. One is an EV study. We completed a phase 1 working with our partners in Wayne and Oakland County and the city of Detroit. We are looking for some additional follow-on funding for phase 2. And that really is working with our communities to determine, are our communities ready for this EV revolution, and what are they doing to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place to meet the demands of the vehicles. The other study is our agriculture economic impact study. This once again looking at our farms and the impact it has here in Macomb County. That currently is underway. We're looking at a completion later this year. Our Lake St. Clair economic impact study, looking at our natural waterways, the assets we've got with Lake St. Clair, and really honing in on what are some recommendations on how do we continue to grow that footprint for the county. And the one, Don, I did not mention in here, but it is our broadband study, and that is working in collaboration with our IT department and understanding, what are the needs for broadband throughout the county. And then within the budget, there is a contractual line item in our budget, so I did want to provide a breakdown of what that looks like. Many of these programs and projects come back year after year, so you may have some familiarity with them, but we did break it down so you can see, what those potential projects are, that we've put some thought and consideration into these projects and want to continue to see these things come to fruition. And I've just got 2 more slides. In regards to some of the special projects that fall within that contractual line item is our Protect and Grow. Working closely with the state of Michigan. Right now there is a specific ask at the state to help support the defense industry. It's really important for Macomb County, but there's assets throughout the entire state of Michigan. So part of that is to continue to partner with our state of Michigan, the Michigan Defense Center, and then also working with our state partners with Selfridge. There is a strong mission right now to fight for fighters. We've tried twice to get those F-35s here in the county, maybe perhaps 3rd time's a charm, and want to make sure that we allocate dollars and resources to be a good partner. And then just one site that I do want to reflect on, because in 2023 we will see a major closure of one of our plants up in Romeo. This is the Ford Romeo engine plant, about 2 million square feet. We did stand up a task force that actually dates back to 2019, making sure that we've got this property ready to go to be redeveloped. Don, thank you for being a part of that task force. We've got some initiatives in play, which heavily fall on how do we market this particular piece of property. But getting back to that site selection strategy, that this will be one of our top priorities, getting the redevelopment and reuse of the site. About 500 employees report to that Ford Romeo engine plant. We want to make sure that they've got jobs that they can ultimately take on, or maybe perhaps looking at future redevelopment with an industrial park or something different for the site. And so with that actually concludes my presentation, so I will leave it up for any questions that you may have.
Commissioners know that I appreciate, she received my questions yesterday, and she didn't only answer them, but they're in the presentation. So the contractual services slide was my ask, and I appreciate the breakdown because I think it shows a little bit more of the breadth and the scope of what your department actually does. I think it helps the commissioners grab a little bit more of a handle on what you're doing on the day-to-day. So I just wanted to thank you for the breakdown and for the quick turnaround. So thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
I don't have a question either. Just my frustration on the whole airplane situation. The East Coast is so heavily covered in military bases of all kinds. The West Coast is relatively covered, and there's a huge swath of the Midwest that used to have military bases, and we've just watched one after another closed over the years. And I still think it's important to have them. If we remember what happened with 9/11, the airplanes on the East Coast could not get to the airplane that ended up going down in the field. They needed a base in the Midwest to deal with that situation. It is a national, in my opinion, a national security issue that we aren't putting more military bases across the mid-swath of the United States. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
No, absolutely. When we were competing for the F-35, that first go-around, Madison, Wisconsin ended up being selected. When you look at the location, in comparison, we've got the waterways where Madison is a city, is surrounded by households. And we're hearing a lot of complaints locally in Madison that they don't want that. Fortunately here in Macomb County, we have a huge support for F-35s. It is a sound of freedom in the sky for us. We have a website we set up a few years ago, the MIF35.org website, and I looked today, and we have over 700 followers that have provided phenomenal positive feedback on why we want F-35s here.
Thank you.
You got it.
Commissioner Zinner?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Commissioner Kleinfeld. I understand. Thank you, Vicki. Did I call you the wrong name?
No, it's Vicki.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure. Thank you. I went to a meeting about the F-35s, and the government had very little to say. And the citizens had several things to say about those. And then I walked out with 2 citizens who seemed to have a lot of knowledge about them. And I thought the little I knew about them from what I read about them is that I'm thinking that they're a new plane, because I know a lot of the 810s are old. Of course, they work great. And but I thought, well, the F-35s would be good. They're newer. But I've had citizens call me now that they're using the base somewhat with them, I believe. Are they using them now? No. Okay, then. Some of the I've had one of the citizens call me recently and say either he read about it then, he thought he heard them, and he said, "What is this loud sound coming from the base?" He said, "My wife and I can't even talk when they're taking off," and I just assumed it was the F-35s, and so because when they have their payload, it's pretty loud. It's supposed to be very loud. Some of the citizens were saying, so and there was a concern about PFAS with them. So are you familiar with that? Is that a concern, do you know?
With PFAS?
Something with PFAS.
Right, so that is a known contamination that I think we're seeing, across the board, across the United States.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be in this plane. When they take off with heavy loads, I guess it's built in there somehow. And then this citizen brought that up to me. And I said,
We had an environmental impact study done on that first round of basing where they looked at the noise decibels being perhaps no different than the F-15s that used to fly out of here. Actually, I think they're F-16s that used to fly out of here. And that definitely was raised as a concern, the noise decibel and when they would fly these missions, being respectable to night flying or day flying. So that was something that was brought up. I think we hear that across the board with any of the fighters.
Now, at that meeting, they were saying that they were training pilots from other countries. Are you talking about that, or are you saying that they're going to come and stay at our base?
So there was two potential rounds of F-35 bed down. Bed down being that the planes would be here. That first one was for our Air Force, where they would locally use that for our local training mission. The second effort was a foreign military sale, where we would work with foreign governors or foreign governments that have purchased the F-35 that needed to do training for their pilots. That was actually a really unique program because that would have brought over 400 families, military families from across the world here locally. So there was a whole housing initiative, making sure that we've got adequate housing that could meet the needs of these pilots and their families. Unfortunately, we were down selected to number 2. We're still an alternative. There currently is the Fort Ebbing in I think it's in Kansas that's being selected for that one.
Do you know the approximate date when they'll make their decision?
They are still doing their due diligence with Fort Ebbings to ensure that they've got the criteria in place to bed down the F-35 there, but we are the second alternative.
Well, I do remember when President Reagan, when I said that, was the president, there was a lot of sound, a lot of flying. The most flying I think I've ever heard for 40 years living in Harrison. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Thank you. Thank you, Vicki, for coming. You and your team do an outstanding job for as small as the staff as you have. I mean, you're everywhere in the county doing many good things for all of us, promoting the agenda, because without economic development and prosperity, we have nothing. We can't, all boats float when the economy's good, and you're doing everything you can to retain our existing employers and looking for new ones. And congratulations today on the announcement. That was a big win for us. And how economic development has been explained to me by your predecessors is one small business at a time. Over time builds up, and you're doing outstanding. I also want to thank your department publicly too for working with the task for leading the task force on the Ford Motor Company. I don't know how try to redevelopment, whatever we can do to out there to make something happen and put something in its place that's will continue the legacy of that plant and so many jobs that it creates. You're only requesting another half-time, part-time individual. That's very good of you. You could probably do a lot more if you had more staff, but like everybody else in this county, we have to be a steer a little bit. That one part-timer meant your park team.
Mm-hmm.
They help your department's helped many communities when they needed it in the last minute because they're applying for a grant and they don't have what they need to apply for. Maybe their master plan's not full built out. Will this person be available to assist the communities for applying for MDNR trust funds? Many communities now have some money in their budgets now where they might be able to, attempt to apply for some of those grants and put up some of the match money to do things in their community. I know several of them that I've talked to in my own district that are interested in doing that. Will that person be available to support? I think I know the answer, but
So, ultimately, being able to bring on this part-timer may help alleviate some of the workload that is falling on the program director, as well as one of our senior planners, to be able to free them up so that they can pursue these other grants. That would be the intention.
Sure. And your goal, and it's not really a goal, it's what you've been doing, assisting many local communities in their own issues. I mean, I often see people from your department up in my community talking to the councils, helping them try to get to where they're trying to go. Do you expect that to be increased? How can you get there? It's in your goals to continue that, but
sure.
What would you like to do?
Yeah, so we're a workforce of 28 and a half. We do have an internship that we like to, extend during those summer months. We like to say we're small but mighty. We started off as the Planning Commission and has since grown. We're actually 5 different work groups, so I don't know if you guys were aware of that. We fall into our traditional community planning, which you may see some of those individuals out there led by Amanda Minato. Our Deputy Director, Jeff, helps oversee our GIS and mapping services, as well as, he's got a really strong background in planning. Right now we've got a vacancy in our Economic Development Work Group with the retirement of Jim Ahi. And then Parks and Natural Resources, led by Jerry Santoro. And then our 5th and final work group is Maria Zardes in our Marketing, Communications, and Outreach. So you're seeing a lot of us. We got to figure out how to clone our staff in order to be exactly where we need to be at all times.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're doing a good job with a little team, and
appreciate it.
And continue the good work, and rely on us commissioners, as you do. I mean, you're working in communities. Reach out to your commissioners too. They could be value added to maybe help fill some of the gaps for information that you're looking for and need. Is there in the community every day, and they're more than happy to assist and reach out to us as always. Some of us, you don't have to wait for us to reach out to you to reach out to us because we're always coming after you. But when you're speaking to somebody's community, let them know. They'd be happy to be there to support. All right.
You got it.
Thank you. Thank you,
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Vicki. Great presentation.
Thanks.
And thank you for everything that you're doing to, improve our economy here in Macomb County. I was just looking at the special revenue fund, and I noticed a lot of the grants have have not been renewed, or have they ended? You went from, I think it was like $1 million down to just a few hundred. Can you elaborate on some of those projects?
Yeah, there are various grants depending on if they are state or federal. Typically, our state grants are year to year, which we won't know until, we apply for those grants, whether we receive those or not. And typically, there may be some type of administrative to help us pursue the grant and cover our costs there. On the federal side, sometimes those grants are a little bit longer. For example, Amanda's working on one for our brownfield, which that one does have a little bit longer of a term.
Okay, all right, and then just overall, I'm seeing for the expenditures, them going up, $300,000 year over year. And so I'm just wondering, with this new program director and the work that they're doing, are you guys looking into applying for more grants to kind of supplement these expenditures that are going up?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at just even this $3 million number that we've received, the year previous we did receive a lot of CARES Act and other grants from the state of Michigan. So $3 million is pretty significant for us. And part of our roles and responsibilities is to go out there and pursue. We like to touch the grants that touch multiple communities, so it's not favoring one community over the other, and making sure that there's an economic impact, across all 27.
Okay, and then my last question, you mentioned the broadband study.
Mm-hmm.
How much is that? Is it a grant, or is it a part of the budget that you have here?
Sure, so it's not in our budget, actually. I don't know if you've met with IT yet. It will fall within the IT budget. Part of that study is, bringing in someone to help us understand, what are the assets that we've got currently in the county as far as our broadband, bringing together those partners, the communication partners, AT&T and Comcast, and then also following up on some recommendations on, how do we pursue some of those larger funding sources that are coming from the federal government to make sure those dollars come here.
So that broadband study is not grant funded?
It is not. No, that would be supported by the county, by our efforts, and it would be led by IT.
Okay, so I wasn't sure. I know we had some, Commissioner Van Sickle's not here, but we had some internal discussions about SEMCOG awarding some grant money for a broadband study. So I'm just wondering if there are any grant dollars that we could utilize for that particular project, because I know it seems to be a huge topic, from the federal to the state level government. So I would imagine there would be funding available for something like that.
Yeah, and I know SEMCOG is really interested in working with us. Their study does include Macomb County to a certain extent, and we do anticipate there will probably be some leveraging of the work that they're doing right now on that study. But, it's definitely, if we can find someone to pay for it, the better.
Okay,
Absolutely.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Vicki, just a couple questions. Bertie probably told you that I'm going to ask you a specific question. Maybe. Yeah, word gets around, right? So 2021 audited, $340,000 was not spent in your budget. Any specific reason why?
Yes, and that's no surprise, when we looked at what was occurring during that timeline. We did have several vacancies that did not go filled. Part of that also is looking at some of that special programming that did not occur. We have, a specific line item in our budget for travel. We did not travel internationally just due to the COVID environment. We had also saw a lot of our events go online, digital, which we were happy for. That actually comes at a cost savings for the county. But we anticipate and are already forecasting that many of the conferences that are out of state are now back face-to-face versus in that digital environment.
Okay. The planner position. Is it possible to put that planner position in your grant fund budget since it's specifically related to that?
So it wasn't written into the grant. And this is where we really should get ahead of that. I actually was having a conversation with Jerry earlier today about another grant that we're looking at, saying we've got to write in these grant-funded positions into the grants. And so the current grants that are awarded to the county and under this $3 million bucket do not have a line item for a grant coordinator per se. But moving forward, yes.
Okay. In regards to your contract services, the $400,000, I know last year that budget line increased. Your current year, are you working towards spending that full $400,000 again?
Yes, there is one line item on here, and I'll actually go to that slide so we can all be on the same page here. It is the solid waste. Year after year, I've been with the county for 10 years. We always have this line item in our budget. We are really following or on the purview of the state when they issue mandates saying we've got to update our solid waste plan. The county really needs to step into action. We actually foresee that this needs to be a full-time position within the county once that solid waste plan gets initiated, and there's some direction coming from the state. But this $40,000 would at least give us enough to bring on a consultant to get us through that first year.
Okay. And then your capital projects, I know you needed some work done in your office in regards to restructuring, but I didn't see that in the capital improvements.
So Steve Schmiegel has since moved that to, I believe, the F&O budget.
Okay. Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions on this budget, please vote. Thank you, Vicki.
Welcome.
Motion passes 10-0.
Okay, next item is public participation. This is an opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. You can just step up to the mic.
Good afternoon. Michael Skupin, Harrison Township resident, Macomb County. I would like to thank the board for the opportunity today to see the progress that is made in the Lingbaya issue, especially Commissioner Zinner with the proposal, creating the Lake and River Fund. But I would like to just make sure that we all see the big picture. We, the residents of Harrison Township that are facing this Lingbaya issue, we only own the water. We don't own the water. We own to the water's edge. We didn't ask for this Lingbaya. We don't know how to remove it. There's the study with the Army Corps of Engineers that's going to be progressing in the next year. But we can't, as residents all along the shorelines here of this wonderful Lake St. Clair, afford to clean this up. We need grant money, we need federal assistance somehow to actually get this done when the study is completed. Please, let's look at the overall picture. We've been fighting Oakland County for 20 years. We need to tighten the standards and not accept them to dump at all. So let's work towards that. Keep that in mind, and thank you very much.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak?
To answer her question, when Carl Marlingus sued Oakland County, he won. The problem was the DEQ wanted $999 million to completely separate Oakland County. That's 14 communities in the south end of that city, from Troy down. That's where you're talking. We're talking a massive area. I worked with DEQ and John Engler's head environmental aide, Chad McIntosh, for 6 months. I went to every permit hearing, and we were winning. And they wanted it separated. One day I walk into a meeting, and nobody from DEQ, John Engler's aide, won't talk to me. And I turned and looked, and John Engler's aide, Chad McIntosh, and I became friends. He took me into the back room, and he said, "Doug, Brooks Patterson called John Engler and told him this was too expensive to fix, the $999 million, and John Engler pulled the plug. And instead of separating the whole community, they separated Madison Heights at a cost of $142 million, and they put more screening and chlorine in, but it didn't fix it. It got rid of a little bit, but it didn't fix it. If this would have went through and we wouldn't have had politics get involved back in 97, 98, you and I wouldn't be talking right now, because Oakland County would have been separated, it would have been fixed and paid for. But instead now, God only knows what the cost is, it's probably $3-4 billion. And Candace is afraid to do anything with her lower end. If you fix Chapin and Martin, it's not going to fix Lake St. Clair, it's going to fix Grosse Pointe, because that's where the water goes. The only thing that's going to fix Lake St. Clair is to get Warren sewer fixed, and Warren has a problem on the south end, and Oakland County. If you don't do that, the Clinton River, Lake St. Clair are going to be a sewer forever. And this linguia stuff, when I started, it was fecal coliform, then it was E. coli, and then it was this, and then it was that, and then it was algae. It's sewage. That's what all this stuff is. It's no different. We'll change the name, but it's still sewage. And until you stop the sewage, this isn't going to end. In '94, when I got involved, when my canal at 16 Mile and Jefferson was plugged up with 200 yards of crap. And why did we get crap? Because Oakland County dumped 1 billion gallons down the Clinton River. It hit the seaweed. The bottom puked. The whole bottom came up, the whole seaweed, for about 150 yards across the whole shoreline, from the Clinton River all the way through the Grosse Pointes. I don't know if you people remember this. You couldn't swim in Lake St. Clair, you couldn't fish, you couldn't use a boat, you couldn't get a boat through it. John Engler sent $6 million and a whole flotilla of people, and they dredged the whole shoreline. I don't know if any people were here then. That's the only way they could get rid of this. If you dredge his shoreline, it'll be back in a year and a half. You can't fix it. You gotta stop the pollution.
You have 30 seconds.
And Don, one last thing. We had, when I was involved, we had 6 health department IDEP people, and they went out and checked every drain every month. And every drain when we started was full of E. coli and sewage, and because of that program, it was all gone. When Candace took over, we were down to just the combined sewer overflows to be fixed. And that's the big ticket stuff, and that's where we are now. If you don't fix it, you can't, the lake's done.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Going once? You can stand to the mic.
Hi, my name's Dan Cuvier. 2018, I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail to raise awareness to this local water quality issue. I had met people like Save Lake St. Clair or Doug Martz. I've learned quite a bit about the problem that's been going on long since I was a child. Before then, my parents, we used to be told that if you're swimming in the lake, you're swimming in a toilet, which isn't really a great thing for your sense of place as you're developing as a child. I guess as I sit here and listen, it sounds like we're all on the same page that we'd like this problem to end. I just don't know how to go about it. It seems like it's a funding thing, goes across federal, state, different grant initiatives to get this thing done. But, like they've pointed out, Mount Clemens separated their sewer systems. And I think I'm kind of on the same page as Doug. If we don't separate, we're just going to continue to do this maintenance yearly. So, and if we're not willing to separate, maybe we should at least have a water quality monitoring system put back in place in the lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Going once, twice. We'll close public participation. Next is commissioner comments. See no commissioner comments. I just, you do?
Yeah, I'm pressing buttons over here.
We'll take your word for it, Commissioner Kleinfeld. You have the floor.
Thank you. I want to throw a caution out to commissioners, generally speaking, not specific to the $1 million. We don't know how far the $1 million is going to go. It could go it could be just the Clinton River and no shoreline, or just a short period of shoreline. I would imagine dredging is quite expensive. But last year, we, on top of the positions that the county executive gave the county prosecutor, we gave every other position he was requesting for. And it was a significant amount, like 11 positions. And he's come back and asked for several more positions again. And there will be others, because if we're giving everything to, when there's a request, that's going to open up the floodgates. Some of you have never worked in government when times are tough. Right now, money is flowing in that's one-time money. And this is a very unusual thing. And I have, for the most part of my career, and Commissioner Haw as well, we have had to deal with budget deficits, very scant budgets. And as I leave, I just want to impart on you guys for the future that if we create a lot more positions that have a yearly expense, and we do it for this department and that department, because I have to tell you, every single department's needs are real. They're real, and they're going to come forward, and we're going to say, yeah, you need positions. And when Don was talking to the sheriff, I was thinking, the commission itself could be responsible for taking this county down and taking it into where the fund equity is gone, and we're laying off employees, and that's a dark place to be. I just wanted to point that out. And one more thing associated with that. We can't retain our workforce. Every time we create 10 positions, that's money we cannot use to compensate the workforce that we have. And we're losing them as soon as we get them trained. So we really need to be smart about how we handle all of this. And like I said, I'll be gone after this year. But it's easy to say yes to everybody. It's a lot harder to say no. But if we don't say no, on a, and I don't mean specific to any particular department, I just know that the floodgates will open, we will be in trouble. And when we do one project like this, Commissioner Zong is correct. There's going to be other commissioners saying, wait a minute, I know what I need in my community, and here's another million, and here's another million. Don's going to be like, I got some chickens up there that needs... and I think this is very important. So I'm not trying to point it out with respect to this. It's a dark road, and I've never seen a commission so willing to hand out extra positions and extra money as I've been seeing with the board in the last couple years. And I'm just putting a red flag out that I'm concerned about it. That's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Commissioner Kleinfeld. The most important thing is to maintain our workers with the pay, and especially our deputies. We have got to keep our workers, or we won't have anything to. We won't even have a county we're nothing without the workers, and in these other areas too. It's nice to be able to give the directors what they need. It looks like they need it, but we have to keep our workers. That is the most important thing. I agree.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. As we're celebrating Halloween next Monday, happy Halloween, by the way, and, the holidays and Thanksgiving, I just want to put it out there that the food pantries didn't have enough money to buy turkeys this year, so there will be families without turkeys. So we just think about that as we look at our budget and where we want to fund and the impact that we really want to make for our communities. I just ask that you think about that. Thank you, Chair.
The only thing I just wanted to bring up, Commissioner Song brought this up earlier today in regards to some of the votes. Actually, it was 2 votes related to the road projects that were specifically addressed as 2023 appropriations. And I know we're moving this on the full board, but I think this is a procedural question if that can even be done. And I'm just going to make the chair aware of that so we can look into this, because I know with some of the other funding, with September ending, and, Steve comes to us and we appropriate that ahead of time, whatever that specific number is. But today that didn't happen. I'm just concerned. I'm making the chair aware of it. I know he'll look into it, but I think we need to be also aware that if there's any appropriations that are being brought to this board prior to our budget being passed, we need to be aware of that. Commissioner.
Thank you for bringing that up. What stuck out in my mind, and it might be the timing of having to order these things, but what stuck out in my mind, and we've had this discussion in the past, is we have entered into multi-year projects where we know we're making a commitment for years that we haven't approved yet, because and it isn't even multi-year contracts. Like, the contract might not, some of the contracts might not even be coming forward for another year or 2 years as a project progresses, but we as a board know when we approve this part that that's going to happen. So that is a little bit different, but we have done that in the past, recognizing that not everything can be done in a fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Song?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You guys are throwing my name out, so I got to respond, right? There was the $41 million, the fiber optic one, which was very nominal, but the $1 million one I'm very concerned about because it is over $1 million. We haven't passed the budget, and frankly, I believe that they could have brought this to us in December after we've already adopted a budget. They still had time, so I'm not sure why it was put on the agenda today, and that's why I voted no, and I'm going to continue to vote no until we get some clarification. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, need a motion to adjourn. Made by Kraft, supported by Haw. Thank you, commissioners. We will see you Thursday.